probably worried about other things than what Marchand's doing out there, down 2-1, and the way your goalie's playing. And I mean, you can argue, next game's this season. I mean, basically you go down 3-1 even. I'd say that's tough. How many teams have come back 3-1? I don't know, maybe.
Well, the Panthers did last year.
Yeah, PTSD.
Walked into that one.
Walked right into that.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. I am Evan Marinofsky. Today joined by the great, the legendary Rear Admiral. All right, what's up?
What's going on, Evan? Thanks for having me on. It's been a long time coming.
It has. I'm happy that you're finally here. You've always been someone I've wanted on this show because you're so Boston. The accent, like Conor Ryan's accent. People, it's always fun. All right, you'll love this. People sometimes in the early days with Conor would be like, "That accent's fake. That accent's fake," and I'm like, "No. He grew up in Southie. Like that accent is fully real." And you have your accent is awesome.
Yeah,
God,
you can't really fake. I mean, if it was faking this, it would sound horrible, because when people fake it, it's like, that young cousin from Boston, all these commercials with like fake Boston accents. Like, just hire someone from Boston. They'll do it probably cheaper, and they'll give you a better accent too.
It's true. You're right. Like, why don't they just screw the actors? Just pull a couple guys, outside of a Dunks in East Boston. But yeah, like I agree with you that you can't fake the accent. Because it just would sound horrible. But obviously RA is from the great Spittin Chiclets, which is the hockey podcast. But right now, Bruins are we have 2 days off between games 3 and 4. I know Montgomery was kind of mentioning a little too much time in Toronto, which he was not a huge fan of. But sort of, what's your take on this series right now? Bruins up 2-1. Where are you at?
I mean, I said Bruins at 5. It's probably right about where I expected it. I went largely on the disparity in the goaltending. I mean, Samsonov, I know he went down the minors. I don't think he actually played when they sent him down. He came back fresh as a daisy. I think he, won his first 3 or 4 games, a couple shutouts, and then he kind of, regressed back to what he was earlier in the year. So I'm not scared of the goaltending at all, especially, we got the two-headed monster here. And then the defense, Morgan Riley's, he's a capable defenseman. I mean, he's not a number one guy, and he's their best defenseman. That core just not doesn't impress me all that much. So based on that, and obviously the Bruins, are beating the top 6. Mana's Matthew. I mean, Mana, Matthews, Tavares. Then again, Mana, I don't know if we'll throw him in there after the first couple of games. So yeah, it's going like I expected. And honestly, I mean, I'll go there now where we're talking about it. If they started Swayman that second game, they might be up 3-0. Who knows? I know Allmark did lose that game. I just don't understand the whole idea of going in with a rotation in the playoffs when everything has to react to stuff. You can't go in. I just don't get the rotation idea. I get they did all season, but it's the playoffs, man. You got to see how things happen before you commit to something.
I get that. And it's interesting because, like I've said all year, last year they had that rotation work. They get the best regular season record ever. They go away from it immediately, and they crumble. And my whole thing this year was like, I want to see him see it through. Like, this is a weird kind of bridge year anyway for the Bruins. I'm not saying like throw it away, but like, I want to see them at least give it a shot in the playoffs. And, I after game 1 and the way that Swayman has played against Toronto this season, going into game 2, I was like, you should start Swayman, and if he stinks, you can go to Allmark in game 3. It's okay. Like, you have that option. And again, I didn't think Allmark was the reason they lost game 2. I thought Allmark, played pretty well in game 2, but now going into game 4, it's like, start Swayman. Like, that's to me, that's the obvious thing. I mean, again, you look at how successful he's been. The Leafs really only can score on those tip-ins in front. You got Domi trying to knock him over in a TV timeout. I was going to tweet the clip and I forgot to do it. Maybe I still will. Remember when Sean Avery hit Tim Thomas in the back of the head in a commercial timeout, and Tim Thomas just like charged at him? I was thinking to myself, like, man, imagine if that was Timmy Thomas getting hit over by Max Domi. Like, there's no ref in the world that could have held Tim Thomas back from taking a shot at Max Domi on
Yeah,
that.
or about a line brawl with Timmy. Yeah, 'cause, yeah, that was the Bruins in Dallas. They had that weird couple of years where they seemed to have a brawl every time they played. They didn't play each other all that much either.
No, it was all those games were like because I was a kid then. Those were like appointment viewing. Like no. In what world would Dallas and Boston be like a matchup you'd really like have marked on the calendar? But those teams had like Sean Avery, Steve Ott.
Yeah,
They had some
yeah.
like legit enforcers, and so. But I think going forward, like, and we can talk the goalie rotation now. It's obviously the biggest thing going. Like, I want them to go with Swayman in Game 4, and I think they've hit that point now. If the Bruins move on, I don't write Olmark off. That's my one thing. Whereas going into the next series, let's just say it's Florida, and that's if the Bruins win this series. I'm not believing the Bruins win this series until that puck, the horn sounds on that fourth win. But to me, like, if it's Florida, if you want to do the rotation, I'm okay with that. And I know that's unconventional, and I know people want just ride Swayman, and maybe Swayman's comments after Game 3 were like, I just want to keep playing. Like, I just keep putting me back in. But I won't write Olmark off. Do you think there's a point where they should go to Olmark, not just in this series, but going forward?
I'm kind of, generally with any team goalies, just play them till they crap the bed, basically. Especially, Game 1. I mean, Swayman didn't get a shutout, but I think he had 35 out of 36 shot save, and he had a ton of huge saves too. Like to keep it I think at a 2-goal game, they didn't let Toronto get within a goal there. It may as well have been a shutout. I thought he definitely deserved to start in Game 2. So yeah, I would just go like game by game basis. And going back to last year, I mean, I might have been the only one at Game 2 saying Swayman next game. I could just tell Olmark was off when he did that tilt the world rolling barrel kind of save like we didn't see all year out of him last year in the play. It just something looked off with him. And then we found out he was injured. The Kevin Weeks report. Kevin knows his stuff. He had a debilitating, painful injury and started 6 in a row after only started 4 in a row a year. So yeah, like I said, I'm not really big on a goalie rotation and the playoffs, but no, we'll definitely see Olmark again. But yeah, I mean, ride Swayman till he, like I said, craps the bed or maybe gets tired. But he's a young kid, man. These goalies historically always played every game in the playoffs, and unless they get lit up or they pull a muscle or something. But yeah, that's my take. Especially again with Toronto, you mentioned the numbers there, and his numbers are insane. I mean, Omar's obviously done well too, but they're not close to Swayman. So for Toronto, ride Swayman, and then Florida, see what happens for Game 1. But definitely we'll see Olmark again, assuming the Bruins move on.
It's funny because like you think about that first round last year, and Olmark was fine through the first 4 games statistically. Like he was okay. They were up 3-1, and I remember we were kind of saying around here, like, all right, do you go to Swayman in Game 5, give Olmark a rest? It's a commanding 3-1 lead. You want to go on a deep run. Olmark was the Vezina favorite at the time. Give him a night off, and I think one of the mistakes was they didn't do it then, and then they put him back in for Game 6. And then that was like, I forget what the final score was, but the Bruins scored a ton of goals. That was just like sort of, tit for tat scoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that like with the rotation, we sometimes, myself included, kind of forget about is like, they can play 3 games in a row. Like, and I think the tough part is though, they're not conditioned to during the season, not conditioned to play multiple games in a row. But I agree with you with Swayman. And I've said this a couple times this year. He has that makeup. Like he wants the net, it. He's a gamer. You can tell. And so far in the series, that's been the case. It wouldn't shock me though if they go back to Olmark in Game 4, and that's not like any insider information, but like just basing off of what Montgomery said after on the practice day on Thursday, like wouldn't shock me if the plan was, hey, go back and forth games 1 through 4, and then see where you're at after that with the goaltending. I just think like you've got to go for it with Swayman here for Game 4.
Yeah, and again, he was stellar the other night as well. I mean, he big reason they won the game the other night. Obviously, Marchand had an unreal game as well. But yeah, like I said, Olmark, I got nothing against a great goalie, but I just don't think you have to go to him until you need to. And as far as last year, I mean, the numbers weren't bad, but he just you could see he was out of sorts. He gave up goals that he wasn't giving up all during the season. But yeah, I don't know how he doesn't come back with Swayman Game 4. I mean, after you have won 2 games, you lost one guy's won you 2. I mean, that's really breaking it down simplistically, but I don't know. I think he goes Swayman, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I think they'll still take the series, but I'd be more confident with Swayman. based on
I
his
like
shot.
how I like how you have Bruins in 5. That's because like typically like in a series that people think is close, or like I had Bruins in 6, and 6 is kind of a cop out, I'll admit, like because you're not saying it's gonna be a quick series, but you're sort of picking the middle. And I love that you say Bruins in 5 because that's just because I know Biz is so in on the Leafs.
Oh,
Everything is Maple Leafs, Toronto this, Toronto that. It's like how? But I agree with you. Like in the sense that, I think Toronto is going to figure it out in these next couple games and get at least a win. Like I think I just think that they're too good up front to not break through and potentially, have a good night against Swayman or something like that. But I just their goaltending is suspect. And
mhm.
you mentioned it earlier. You saw it in game 3. Toronto's up 1-0. Their momentum's on their side. And Samsonov lets in that Frederick shot. Like,
Yeah,
there's no
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
you and me could suit up and make that. It's like I don't understand how that goes in on an NHL goalie. And Samsonov has had those moments, and you even saw like early in game 3, Zacha had that shorthanded breakaway, and the puck kind of just trickles past Samsonov and goes past the net, and it's stuff like that where like Toronto is good up front. They are good 5-on-5 scoring, but they're going to be hampered by what's going on in net.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're eager to go to Wolodo. He's been decent the few times I've seen him out there. But I mean, Samsonov, he's 8.95 save percentage, a little over 305 goals against. And I know numbers are sort of up across the board. But one other number that jumped out to me looking at the goalie stats, 18. There's been 18 goalies who have played in the playoffs so far. That means only 2 teams have used 2 goalies. One because the guy was hurt, Vancouver, Demko's hurt, so they had to go to DeSmith. And the other team, the Bruins, because they have a rotation. So I don't know. That just kind of jumped out at me that no other team has, other than a guy who was hurt, has used the second goalie. So I don't know. Maybe they've been in Toronto for too long. Who knows?
Maybe that's the case.
Although he was, sorry, I was just saying.
No,
Although
continue.
he will. Whoever plays, at least they are going to get extra rest. So if it is Swayman next game, I mean, he's getting an extra day's rest because they got 2 days off between 2 and 3, and then 2 days off between 3 and 4. That's a rarity to have that many days off in one series. So if nothing else, whoever Monty goes with it, they'll at least get some extra rest. If nothing else.
Yeah, and it's interesting though because like you could almost make the argument that that's not the best idea because Swayman's so hot. Like if you go back to Swayman, like you almost want him to just keep rolling, and instead they have that extra day. But I agree, it does give them a little bit more rest, and maybe they stick with Swayman in game 4. There's a lot I want to get into in this series,
Yeah.
but first a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Quick break in the action to tell you about my good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham, all in the same entry. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, Prize Picks will have your back and not count that as a loss. Personally, the NHL regular season, it's winding down, and when the postseason begins, I'm taking more on David Pastrnak point totals. How could you not? I'm expecting a pretty big postseason from one David Pastrnak, and with the Red Sox, how can you not do the same on Rafael Devers' home runs? Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, back to the show. So game 3, Brad Marchand, first half. I love that Tony Maz tweet. Marchand looks old. And he wasn't wrong. Marchand was not having the impact that I think everybody wanted him to have. People thought he could have. And then that second half. Like, that is, if you could pick a half of hockey to showcase how good Brad Marchand is, what his impact can be, it's got to be that, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is going to be 36 in 2 weeks too. Not to say he's old, but I mean, he's got a lot of hard miles on him, and he's still a hell of a player. I had one of my uncles, like classic Boston sports fan. Like, by the way, how many times did people bitch about this team after all the wins they had? They go on to like a 3-game losing streak. Like, oh, what's the matter with the Bruins? Everyone's like stops with Dunkin' Donuts. It's like they're first place in the freaking league for crying out loud. So it's just classic Boston. Boston fan. He's like, oh, Marchand, he looks old, he looks slow, he looks terrible at that. It's like, dude, it's a playoff. Sometimes they focus on a better line. They're getting shut down, and that opens up the door for second and third liners. I mean, we saw fourth liners even. We see that all around the league. But yeah, I mean, it's not like he turned it on. I don't know if something just clicked for him, or if Toronto changed coverage, or whatever they did. But yeah, he turned it on. I mean, the 2 goals, the assist, yeah, involved everywhere. Just the menace out there. Like when he's involved, then that team, he's the what's the straw that stirs the drink, the old Reggie Jackson line.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he was the other night perfect. I mean, I believe he's tied with McDavid points right now, playoff points, although McDavid's played one fewer game. But yeah, he looked like the Marchand. Oh, I don't want to say of old. I mean, guy's been playing great the last couple of years. And again, he's got to be 36. Guys do tend to tail off in the even early 30s, but I think we'll see the rest of this Marchand for the rest of the series, or however long the playoffs go. Like I said, he didn't lose it overnight. I mean, Toronto might have been just checking him a little bit better, or maybe just need to shake rust off. But I wasn't worried about this guy at all.
No, and
Felger Mass, that's what they do. They worry it's the pod. Hi guys.
yeah, exactly. I also think like Toronto's done a pretty good job at matching up 5-on-5 with Boston's top 6. You've seen like the Zaka line hasn't been as potent as you would expect, but that's the playoffs, right? Like that stuff happens. Teams kind of cancel each other out. But I think what Marchand was able to do, right, that snipe, that was the eventual game winner, and then you also had the assist on DeBrusk's goal, but it started with that zone entry on the power play, like holding on to it. I mean, it was just like. I saw someone tweet that he held on to the puck that long because he wanted to keep hearing the boos. And I just like, and you just see like getting under their skin. Sheldon Keefe's comments made no sense to me after game 3, him calling out Marchand. Marchand, I don't think they had 5 power plays. Like it's you didn't capitalize on your 5 power plays. That's where the accountability should be. I didn't get that.
Yeah, what do you say? Is it odd to not having penalties called? Is that I listened to a couple times. I wasn't sure the point he was making. Like, there's odd to not have. I wasn't sure either. But I think he might be trying a little gamesmanship too, like coaches do this time of year.
Of
Although
course,
we are getting some doozy sound bites out of both these coaches so far. I'll say that. But yeah, I didn't know what necessarily he was talking about. But I think it's just like I said, the gamesmanship, whether they think the refs are going to hear it, or just maybe the other coach will hear it. But I don't know. I mean, if I'm Keefe, I'm probably worried about other things than what Marchand's doing out there, down 2-1, and the way your goalie's playing. And I mean, you can argue, next games did this season. I mean, basically you go down 3-1 even. I'd say that's tough. How many teams have come back 3-1? I don't know, maybe 10 or
the
12.
Panthers did last year.
Yeah, PTSD.
Walked into that one.
Walked right into that. I know 3-0 is the one that's only had like 4 or 5, but 3-1. I don't think Tampa would beat them. Sorry, Toronto would beat them 3 games in a row. But yeah, I keep talking about Marchand, especially after that game. I don't think anybody gets in that guy's head one way or the other.
You know why I have confidence in the Bruins in this series? Because every time the Bruins have something that isn't great, right? The power play, playoff games at home, the Bruins weirdly lose a lot of those. Montgomery's doozy comments. Somehow the Leafs do worse. The Leafs like one up them. Like the Leafs are worse at home in the playoffs. The Leafs have a worse power play. I don't know how. I really don't know how you don't have a better power play with that group of forwards. And then Sheldon Keefe's comments are worse. Like they make it worse. And it's really the only team in the playoffs I look at for the Bruins, and I'm like, oh, they like definitely win that matchup. And again, I going into the playoffs, like the Leafs are not as bad or not as easy an opponent as they have been in past years. Like this core is older. Matthews had an outstanding game too. But they just like run into themselves at times. And I think that's why, they're in danger, I think, right now in this series.
Yeah, I mean, you always make the comparison. They're the Red Sox pre-2004. With a little bit the lovable loser aspect. But I'm sure they're sick of hearing that. I mean, it's been it's 33, 57 years since they won a Stanley Cup. I mean, they've lost to this Bruins team with 3 times in the last 11 years in horrific fashion each time. So I'm sure they're sick of hearing all that stuff, but it only goes away if you win. And if I'm keep those comments to a minimum. Maybe I don't know. I know he likes to talk to is for a coach, but just don't give them any more stuff to write about. I say at this time of year because you got to wonder if the pressure does affect this group. I mean, they've one series win, obviously the last 20 years. And we see that play with Minor the other night. Plays and he's in the offensive zone, and I don't know what he was trying to do. I don't know if he thought McAvoy was going to play the puck, and he just went around him, and it's just you see that stuff, and you just don't see guys paying the price. Like you'd see on other teams. And I don't know if they lose in the first round again, you got to think that, Shanahan and Treliving make some sort of changes, whether it's just behind the bench, personnel or whatever, because clearly what they've been doing for the last several years is just not working.
Yeah, that I think Jordan Schmaltz tweeted that clip of Marner kind of, avoiding the contact, and it's like, oh, and Marner, credit to Marner, we did respond in game 3 with that assist on Nyes' goal. I want to get into the big question of can the Leafs actually come back in this series, because it is only 2-1. I think we do need to discuss that. But first, our friends over at Factor Meals. I want to tell you about our friends over at Factor Meals. Eat stress-free this spring with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, or Vegan and Veggie. Also, discover more than 60 add-ons every week, like breakfast, on-the-go lunch, snacks and beverages to help you stay fueled and feel good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and fuel up your springtime goals. Get chef-prepared meals on the table in 2 minutes with Factor's ready-to-eat meals so you can get back to doing what you love this spring. Looking for gourmet meals? Try meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, truffle butter, broccolini, and asparagus. And we're celebrating Earth Day all month long. Look out for the Earth Month Eats badge on the menu for our lowest carbon footprint meals. So head to factormeals.com/Bruins50 and use code Bruins50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's code Bruins50 at factormeals.com/Bruins50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. Now, back to the show. So the big question, right? It's only 2-1 Bruins going into game 4. Do you see the Leafs? Can the Leafs come back?
Yeah, they certainly can. I mean, they are an NHL team, and we've seen stranger things happen.
They are an NHL team.
I like that. Praise all over the place. Yeah,
borderline, but they are an NHL team.
Yeah, I mean, it's effort, pride. If they can, put it all together, sure they can. I mean, it's hockey, and if emotions are low on one side, high on the other, it can happen. Do I think it's going to? No, I don't think so. I think Swayman starts the next game. I think the Bees still probably be Toronto's best punch. Bruins come back up 3-1 and then wrap it up in 5. And if Florida wraps it up, they'll have to wait for the other East series to start, right? I mean, to finish up before they start, right? Yeah, because that's get a little rest. I know I'm not jumping the gun here, but Florida, man, they look scary right now. That's a tough team, but yeah, they do. They look real good. But yeah, Toronto, 100%. They could come back. That's certainly possible. And like you said, this is their best punch the next game. Hypothetically, it should be. But I'm not too worried about it. I think the Bees will counter. And like I said, I still like the Bees in 5. Wrap it up at home. Get a little bit of rest for round 2.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are 2 things. If the Leafs can do these 2 things, they'll flip the series, and they've been the X factors. It's been special teams and goaltending. Like, you look at it, they're 1 for 11 right now on the power play. I would think at some point that crew, I know they've been bad since March 1st, but like Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Bertuzzi, like Riley, at some point. And if they get Nylander back, that's another boost. I know he's dealing with migraines right now. At least that's what's being reported, which sucks. That sucks. But I think if they can get the power play going, I think the series does shift a little bit. And the second one, I don't foresee happening, but It's goaltending. If they get better goaltending, if Samsonov kind of turns it up here and figures it out, he was pretty good in game 2. If he can find a good level to match Swayman or Omar, whoever's in net, like, I think the series shifts then. But I go back to what you said. Do I see that? Do I see that part happening? No, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, because I mean, he had like that period of the game the other night. Oh, he made a couple of real good saves. Like, oh, okay, he looks like he might be the goalie. After he first come back from the AHL earlier this year, then and then Freddie took that shot from the left circle and right by. I was like, oh, same old Sorokin. I do wonder though, what keeps threshold for putting Wool in, the backup. I mean, like I said, I mean, I've seen limited play of that guy, but I don't know. Is he gonna be any worse than what he's getting from? Did I see Sorokin again? I get Sorokin and Samsonov confused all the time. But I mean, for what he's got now,
Sorokin had a rough night on Thursday, right, against the Canes.
Yeah. He took Varlamov out. Petraglia started Sorokin. 4 goals on 13 shots. He ended up yanking him. So yeah, a lot of tough situation for a lot of goalies so far. Like I said, I'm curious though if they will throw Wool out there. And as far as going back to the special teams, I mean the Bruins power play, it was at 50% right now. Toronto below 10%, and the Bruins penalty killing, like, well, obviously pretty good if you hold them 1-11 was the math. Yeah, 90%, and then Toronto's what are they, 50% on the penalty kill? Just brutal special teams. But it's 3 games. That stuff can change on a dime very quickly. But I think the Bruins just got to worry about their own end. Don't worry about Toronto. Just take care of business. They're relatively healthy. The goalies are playing well. There's just no reason Toronto should win this series at all.
I agree. And I think if they're 5 on, I think the thing is if the Bruins goaltending starts to stink, right? Like if Swayman is bad and Olmark is like, then obviously things shift. I don't see that happening. But, we mentioned round 2, right? We both think the Bruins should win this series. So we both obviously think the Bruins should be in the second round. What's your view on them post the first round? Do you see them as a team that can go to the cup? Do you see them, I'm not saying make a prediction now because God, we're not even done with this series, but like, do you see them going deep or do you see it just kind of, one round and out?
I don't have them in that, like, maybe top tier of contenders. Like maybe probably I had them last year, ironically, but I think they can go as far as their goaltending can take them. I mean, like, I know it's common sense of the playoffs, but they still got some great forwards up front. Geeky was a great sign. Obviously, Marchand passed on that. Coyle's been terrific this year. Zaka. I mean, they got some really good forwards in the top 6. The D's, solid as they come, and like I said, the goaltending. It wouldn't surprise me at all, even if they made it to the cup final. Like I said, I be very happy if it happened. But yeah, I think Florida's probably a notch above them. The Rangers are a notch above them. Carolina, certainly, the way Freddie Anderson's been playing, picking up Jake Gensel. I mean, Carolina, they might be the beast of the East right now. So yeah, nothing would surprise me with the Bees, but yeah, I don't have them as high as those other teams. But that's why they play those games, right?
That's why they do. I would agree with you. I think they, in my eyes, probably, it's so hard to tell with them. Like last year, at least that team was a wagon. It was like, all right, they better be at least in the conference final. And of course it didn't happen, but this team, it's hard to get a read. And the one advantage they have over every team they play, pretty much every team, is they have good goaltending. And if one is bad, they can put the other in and it'll most likely be fine. And you sort of have that counter right now on D. And we've talked a lot about in other podcasts, what should you do with the third pair? Should it be Wotherspoon? Should it be, when can Forbert come back? Should it be Lowry? This and that. I still think you have the goaltending advantage over most teams. And I think that could help you. And you're a pretty good defensive team to begin with, which would help against a team like the Rangers or maybe the Panthers. But I going throughout the year, I had them getting to the second round and bowing out. But like, would it shock me if they went on a run? No, wouldn't at all. Like, would it shock me if they were out in round 2? No, it wouldn't. Like, I think at some point it's just kind of like, this is a weird team. It's hard to tell because they're so unconventional. They have a goalie rotation. They don't have a star-studded cast of centers, but they get the job done. Like, they're this weird, everybody, they're different than everybody else.
And there'd be, again, putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit here. Yeah, cut from the horse.
Yeah.
Is if they do play Florida, man, the Bruins are also going to have, and I don't know how far this will carry, but the revenge factor. I mean, they got embarrassed last year. Best quote unquote best team ever. And they end up losing the first round, so they'll have that added emotion. But sometimes I wonder how much that is going to be a factor when you're on the ice and the other team's just smashing you through the boards, and Matty Tkachuk's just going buck wild out there. So I don't know how much of a factor it would be, but it's something to think about anyways. But it'd be a hell of a rematch, man. I certainly hope it happens. Although I don't think they'll be putting too much money on the Bruins that round.
I think that's gonna be a great series because you also have the added element of like the Bruins lost to him last year, and I've said all
Mhm.
year like a team that gets embarrassed after being really good. Like you think of the Lightning in 2019 and then the
Mhm.
next season winning the cup. Like teams when they get embarrassed typically find a way to make a push the next year and to go against kind of their rivals in the Panthers, just having gotten upset by them last year. I think the Bruins put up a fight in that series. I don't know if I'd pick them, but that's not going to be a quick series like that. I think the Bruins will put up a legitimate fight and match up all right. Bobrovsky's been really good. I
Oh,
mean, that save the other night was
oh,
fucking crazy. Um,
insane. Well, the Bruins 2010 too. Philadelphia come back with
yes,
3-0. That was the other one. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you. That
you're
was
right. No, but
game
you're
one.
right.
Yeah.
You're right, and you see it across all sports, and that's why, like, I think the most experts, most people would pick the Panthers, but like, I don't know. Maybe the more I think about it, I would I would pick the Bruins, but that's a thing for another day. I'm not wasting my prediction on that now. We got to get through this series. Get through this series first. But anyways, RA, it's been awesome
Mhm.
having you on. Spittin'
Thanks for
Chiclets. What
having
should
me.
the people
Yeah.
look forward to from Chiclets next couple weeks?
Yeah, we're back to two a week during the first few weeks of the playoffs here. I know people wish we were on two a week all the time like we used to be, but you go send your tweets to the other two guys. It's certainly on my call. I do whatever they want. But yeah, we're gonna have guests. Who do we got lined up? Actually, we got Charlie Coyle. We just got him on
Nice.
tap. We got Brock Faber. We just dropped Seth Jarvis last week, and we'll be doing a Monday episode instead of Tuesday. And then we did a live episode on Wednesday at noon, which is the first time we ever did one of our numbered episodes live. And then, we post it right away. So that was kind of fun, because you can't, we butcher enough words and phrases as it is. So, but we couldn't get the take two if we needed it, but it was fun to do that. So yeah, Monday mornings, episodes will be dropping, and then Wednesday live at 12 if you can catch it live. And then our buddies doing game notes, Merle's and Colby Armstrong. Those actually today, Friday at 1:00. But they've been coming out Friday. So we basically get, through the Chiclets family, 3 shows to keep you updated through the playoffs. And obviously a lot more active on Twitter. And, Bizen would have been stirring the pot quite a bit there. So it's as bad as that Twitter's gotten, at least the playoffs here. And it's, you kind of have your own little like, hockey. I don't say hockey Twitter. That can mean a lot of different things. But you kind of get your hockey playoffs. Twitter can be fun again. I guess with the playoffs here again.
I was gonna say during the playoffs, Twitter is fun, and it's a fun way to keep up, and the
Mhm.
memes, and the jokes, and the bad takes, and the good takes, and fortunately, the Chiclet stuff will be cranking out. It's that time of year, so people should go look forward to that. And yeah, that's this week's Bruins Beat. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Rear Admiral. We're presented by Prize Picks, you Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.